we can imagine a good society, but who will bring it about? Zygmunt Bauman asked this question plaintively in his Indigo interview. Some common goods are easy to name. A world with less violence, a fairer distribution of resources, more attention to ecology. But who will bring this about? Wondered Bauman. He names a couple of difficulties. First, most power is concentrated in the economic system, outside the reach of popular democratic control. Financial elites and the seemingly impersonal market forces decide the world's direction. And second, says Bauman, most citizens are too busy managing their own difficult lives to have the time and energy left over for organizing, for collective action, for participation in civic life. We are exhausted by running our personal races to advance our careers or simply to stay afloat and keep our own families well and protected. But nobody said that working for common goods, for shared goods, would be easy. Only the trivial things in life are easy, like buying a new gadget. As the writer Jonathan Kozol once put it, nothing worthwhile ever comes for free. Angela Auschwitz was someone who knew that what matters doesn't come for free. As a young woman living in Nazi Germany in the early 1940s, she dared to publicly criticize the dictator Adolf Hitler. For doing so, she was taken to Auschwitz, the concentration camp where the Nazi regime put all of the people that they didn't like and where they imprisoned and tortured and killed people. Angela was forced to work in the hospital within the concentration camp. And in that hospital, many women who were sick were taken in, and because they were sick, the Nazis planned to execute them. And Angela hid many of these women in secret places around the hospital and brought food to them, and she thereby saved their lives. The women whom Angela saved named her the Angel of Auschwitz. Angela herself died in Auschwitz in 1944. We live in a society that worships billionaire business owners, sexy models, and sports stars, some of whom we even call heroes. But someone who earns the name the Angel of Auschwitz is in a completely different league of heroism. Speaking of Auschwitz, the Nazis built that concentration camp in Poland, and at first the outside world didn't know much of what was going on there, behind the gates, behind the barbed wire. But many people suspected that terrible things were happening inside. One of them was a Polish man named Witold Pilecki. He felt that someone must investigate what is happening inside of Auschwitz and warn the rest of the world. Pilecki had a family he loved. You see them in the picture. His wife, whom he loved, his 2 children, whom he loved. But he decided to sneak into Auschwitz. When the Nazis were doing a roundup of people they were going to take as prisoners in Warsaw, Pilecki went into this group of people and went into the middle of the group so that he was taken with them as a prisoner to Auschwitz. And then, just as he expected, it was very terrible inside. He wrote of his arrival there, I quote, "Here our hair of head and body were cut off, and we were slightly sprinkled by cold water. I got a blow in my jaw with a heavy metal rod. I spat out 2 of my teeth. Bleeding began. From that moment we became mere numbers. I wore the number 4859. As a prisoner in Auschwitz, Pilecki managed to smuggle out reports that he wrote on pieces of paper of what was going on there, and smuggled them out of the camp to alert the world of how the inmates were being starved to death, exposed to the elements, tortured and gassed. After 2.5 years there, witnessing these atrocities, he wrote in one of these messages that was smuggled out, I quote, "Further stay here might be too dangerous and difficult for me," end quote. He decided to try to escape, and he made an escape in the middle of the night, running, climbing over a barrier and through a door and running into the darkness. The guards shot at him, and one of the bullets struck him, but he survived and kept running and got away. Later, though, he was doing another brave mission and was caught and executed. "Go to the places that scare you," said the Buddhist nun Pema Chodron. Witold Pilecki did that. He went to the places that scared him, feeling that someone had to tell the world what was going on in Auschwitz. I stand in awe that a human being can be so beautiful as Witold Pilecki, as Angela Autrey. I think we should try to hold on to such people, cherish them, learn from them. together with colleagues, I've collected 365 stories of the generosity and courage that human beings are capable of in the service of common goods. All of these people paid a price, some of them a high price, some of them a modest price. I think of people like Lubna Hussein. One day in 2009, this Sudanese journalist went to a restaurant in Sudan wearing pants. And that is a big deal because it is illegal for women in Sudan to wear pants. They have to wear traditional dresses instead. And she was taking the risk of being flogged and jailed for this act of defiance. But she persisted, and she started a media campaign to call attention to the unfairness of a society that doesn't allow women to wear pants. Or I think of another bold woman, Manal alSharif. A couple of years ago, she was arrested in Saudi Arabia, where she lives, by the religious police because she had posted a video clip of herself on YouTube where it showed that she was driving a car. In Saudi Arabia, it's forbidden for women to drive cars in the cities. And her action inspired other women to do the same kind of protest. I think too of Wesley Autrey. Some of you heard me speak of him at a previous Indigo event. Wesley Autrey, a construction worker in New York City. In 2007, he was on the subway platform together with his two children, shown in the picture. And he saw a man fall down onto the tracks, and this man fell just when a train was coming in on those tracks. And Wesley Autrey jumped down and he tried to lift the man, but he didn't have time, so he pushed this man between the metal rails and held him still, and the train passed over the two of them, and neither of them was severely injured, so he had saved this person's life. Another life with moments of high drama is that of the blind Chinese human rights activist Chen Guangcheng. In 2006, he told Time magazine of the forced abortions and sterilizations that women were having to undergo because of China's one-child policy. And for speaking with a journalist, he was sentenced to 4 years in prison and then to house arrest. But as some of you remember, he made a dramatic escape from house arrest in April of this year, climbing over a fence at night and getting into a waiting car. He said that sometimes being blind gives you advantages because you have a sense of how to move around in the dark. And he managed to escape, and eventually, after diplomatic discussions, he got permission to bring his family to New York City. Or what about the journalist Natalia Sharples? She lives in Turkmenistan, and in February of this year, she criticized the presidential election there. It was a corrupt election. The votes were not really counted. The next day, she found when she came home the severed head of a sheep left in front of her door, which was a symbol that somebody planned to murder her. But despite various death threats, she continues her journalistic work. Or we may think of a woman named Julia Butterfly Hill. In 1997, she started living in a 1,500-year-old redwood tree in California because there was a timber company that wanted to destroy, that wanted to cut down this ancient primeval forest, one of the last of its kind, and she wanted to protect the trees. So she climbed into this tree with food and supplies and said she was going to stay there. And she remained up in the tree for 2 years until the timber company agreed not to cut down this old forest. Speaking of brave women in high places, I think of our hometown Busan hero, Jin Seok. As some of you may remember, it was on January 6th, 2011, that this labor activist began her peaceful protest against mass layoffs at the shipyard here. She sat in a crane 35 meters above the ground for 309 days until an agreement was reached between the workers and the management. Sometimes it feels as though there are millions of such individuals working to make our societies a little more humane, standing up to tyrants, carving out spaces of gentleness. They are a secret conspiracy of hope, quietly keeping alive the hope of a common good. Together, they form a counterweight to our world of violence and greed. They remind us of what we are capable of, that amidst the dark night of indifference, it's possible for our species to shine so magnificently.